Hi everyone, it's me Maria and I'm back with another video. I was going to do a video about why you would get a reading, but instead I decided today I would do one on the differences and similarities between playing card divination and tarot cards. So, what exactly is the difference? They have similar origins. First of all, tarot originated as a card game. As much as people would like to say that it originated entirely as a form of divination, similar to playing cards, it originated as part of a game. The original decks, which were known as like tarocchi, and I might be pronouncing that wrong. I often learn things just from reading words, so please be nice. But the original decks were made up of the cards we would now recognize as the major arcana, or the trump cards. So these are going to be like the Fool, the Magician, the High Priestess, etc., etc. Eventually, the decks became expanded and began to include 4 suits, similar to the playing cards. So, in a deck of playing cards, at least in a deck of American playing cards here, there are differences regionally based on games that are played and then the types of decks that there are. And you can always remove cards to make a smaller deck, which is the case with a few different forms of European cartomancy. But in an American deck, you are going to have 12 face cards, you're going to have 10 ranked cards for each suit, and then you're going to have 2 jokers. So in total, that is going to be 54 cards. Now, I think I mentioned it briefly in my intro video that not everybody reads using the jokers, but I do. And I only leave 1 joker in. That's really up to every reader and how they learned and what style of reading that they're doing. That's going to determine if they're going to leave that in. So, you also have the 4 suits, which are hearts, diamonds, spades, and clubs, which have their analog in the tarot as the pentacles, which are diamonds, cups, which are hearts, the spades have become swords, and the clubs have become wands. Now, in tarot, there's now also a lot of people familiar with the elemental attributions of the suits. I'll be honest and say I don't know if that goes back any further than the Rider-Waite Tarot, and specifically the meanings of the cards that were really pushed by members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. It's possible that there were assumptions and correlations going further back, but I'm unsure of that, so I'm not going to make any claims about it. But that is another aspect of that is slightly different between tarot and playing cards. So in playing cards, some people do read elemental associations into the suits, a la just kind of transferring the associations from the tarot to playing cards. However, I'm a bigger fan of what I call treating cards by sect. So in playing cards, there are 2 red suits and there are 2 black suits. The red suits are energetic, fiery, generally positive in so much as they, both the hearts and diamonds are suits that contain a lot of the really nice, good things in life, versus the black suits, so spades and clubs, both, I won't say are entirely unfavorable, but in playing card divination, the suit of spades is the suit of woes. So all the troubles in life, sickness, bad luck, death, those are things that are going to be, appear as cards from the suit of spades. Clubs are related to labor and work. So there's there's kind of there are similarities between the suits in both. However, I would say that playing cards are a little bit more straightforward. Whereas a lot of people, when they read tarot, they come to it from a psychological perspective. They see the cards as a psychological tool of reflection. And there's nothing wrong with that. However, personally, I find it a little bit more helpful when I can look at a reading and then give my client solid advice, not just oh, you're gonna use your energy better, or you should try to be more positive right now. My goal is to help my clients get out of tough situations. And if you're unwilling to read the cards for what they are, because sure, the Ten of Swords can just mean, like it's the end of a period or phase in your life. And that's the same for the Ten of Spades. But there are times when if you have too many negative cards showing up in a reading, it's not just about going through a rough patch. It can mean worse things than that. Now, that's our job as readers, to be delicate about how we put things. And that being said, it would be very obvious, or it would be very easy to misdiagnose problems as being worse than they are based solely off the content of the meanings of the symbols of the cards. So that is where having experience with this comes into the picture. When I was starting out with tarot, I was always very intimidated by if, like, the Death card and the Tower showed up. And of course, I wanted to, soften the blow and not tell people, oh, no, this is a bad card. But I had several instances where I softened the blow, I didn't quite explain it. And then, this was before, I wouldn't say they're clients, these are more like for friends who I was doing readings for. Their lives would go horribly wrong, and often in ways that I'd kind of intuitively thought of, like breakups that I could see in the cards, and I didn't say anything about because I didn't want to hurt their feelings or make them worry. But that's not helping anyone. Our job as readers is to break bad news to people, because that's why people come to you. I'm going to get back to the cards now because I realized I was starting to segue. But that's a really important thing, and we'll get into that a little bit more as we explore the suits, as well as their various symbols. We probably won't get fully into that in this video, but we'll have little bits and pieces. Okay, so, playing cards. At least in American decks, 54 cards, 4 suits, 2 sects, red and black, and the jokers. Tarot cards. In a tarot card deck, there are 78 cards. You're going to have, similar to the playing cards, you are going to have 10 ranked cards for each of the suits. These ranked cards or numbered cards are known as the minor arcana, whereas the 22 trumps are known as the major arcana. And as I mentioned earlier, the major arcana was actually the earliest form of the tarot before it got synthesized with playing cards via the inclusion of suit. Now, other differences. There are 3 face cards for every suit in a deck of playing cards. That's going to be the king, the queen, and the jack or knave. And in tarot, there are 4. So that's another slight difference. In tarot, in each suit, there's going to be a king, a queen, a knight, and a page. And sometimes the pages are called princesses in other forms, or in other styles of decks. So like in the Thoth Tarot, you have the princesses. And I believe also in the Thoth Tarot, Crowley changes the kings to knights. I kind of like knight, king, queen, page, personally. That's also just because I really like I do like the Rider-Waite deck. I like the art of it. I think it has this kind of dreamy fairy tale quality to it, even though like some of the cards' images are pretty dark. Now in the playing cards, you can get a lot of the same meanings that you would get from multiple cards in tarot, simply synthesized into one. So what I mean by that is that like kings in the tarot kind of take up the qualities of both the king and the knight, and that they kind of combine into one. I read them as being very similar. So it's kind of just streamlined, and rather than having 4, we just have 3. And then the trumps. The trumps are really the largest difference between them. So the trumps are also called the major arcana, and each one of those cards, as some of you are going to be familiar with, maybe some of you aren't, are kind of large symbolic, they're they're kind of like larger symbols than just the ranked cards. Whereas like when you have like a multiple combination of like different ranked cards and suits in a reading, you having a trump card next to them will tell you a little bit more exactly about what specifically is being spoken about here. So it makes it a little bit more exact, but it also makes more moving pieces. So it makes it possible for you to interpret things a little bit more vaguely. Whereas with playing cards, it's very direct. It's very direct. And in many ways, just as I said in playing card divination, the attributes of knights and kings kind of just get combined. I kind of combine some of the trumps, in my understanding, into some of the playing cards. So for instance, the Ace of Spades is colloquially known as the death card. I kind of interpret it that way a little bit. That's one of the meanings that the Ace of Spades has as a card. However, it's, you know, it still has aspects of the interpretations from the tarot with aces. So aces and playing cards are still representative of the beginnings of things. So they're the beginnings of whatever that suit represents. So the Ace of Spades is a nasty surprise. It's an unpleasant event that comes out of nowhere. In certain circumstances, it can be pretty negative things. It can, if it were to appear, I would be very worried if I had a reading that was predominantly spades, and then say, like, the Ace of Spades next to the 9 of Spades and the 10 of Spades. That could be a sign of a serious accident. Now, also, depending on where they fall in the spread that you're using, will determine what exactly that is. I'm a fan of reading cards together in a line or in threes and in pairs. So I use a spread of 3x3 cards, so 9 cards total. And so I read things in pairs, like the corners of the cards. So like the bottom left with the top right, for instance. And that's, I'm getting off topic here, but the placement is another major important thing to take into consideration when you're interpreting things. Okay, let's get back to the differences between the tarot and playing cards. So the trumps are kind of nice. The major arcana are nice because they give you they give you kind of a really solid area for you to focus on in an interpretation when you're dealing with a question that a client might have. But those same things are possible those same meanings are possible to divine using the playing cards. So why would you do one over the other? Personal taste. That's it. Some people really like tarot. I've started offering tarot card readings again recently just because tarot is more popular and more well-known than playing card divination. However, I personally still like playing card divination more. There's something just down home and simple about, you know, interpreting these really mundane images. You know, truly, like, very simple. Like, we know these cards from playing poker, playing blackjack. I really like blackjack. I do enjoy card games. But, you know, it's kind of cool to be able to shuffle them and ask a question and then lay them out and get an answer. It does take time with memorizing. It definitely helps more to memorize the associations of the card. Now, where does that come from? The associations in playing cards are a whole lot more literal and have more to do with the rank, so meaning the number of it. So, like the deuce, the twos. The deuce of clubs is known as the handshake, so it can be the beginning of a business investiture. Not sure if that's a word, but I'm just kind of talking. It can be the beginning of a new business venture, a new business partner. It would really depend on what exactly is going on around the card. Now, that being said, in the tarot, let's see if I can find a 2 card here. Just for checks and balances. No, just for comparison. Oh boy, this is fun. You guys get to watch me just turn cards. Look at this. I didn't stack the deck. This is freshly shuffled. Oh boy, there's... Come on, cards. My God. I just want to give me a 2. Give me a 2. I just want to show you guys the difference and what I mean by, like, how you interpret things. My goodness, this is ridiculous. Okay. There we go. Okay, so for comparison, let's look at the 2 of clubs versus the 2 of pentacles from the tarot. So here in the tarot, obviously, we have a fairly, you know, a more complex, oh God, I can't, there we go, a more complex symbolic image. And that's useful because you can take a lot of things into account from like how the character in the card is standing, what they're doing, symbols in the backgrounds, colors, facial expression, which way they're looking. There's a whole lot going on here. And that's useful. That is really useful. But it can also be, in my opinion, a little bit overwhelming. But same idea is kind of here. Here, it's the association with the rank number of the suit. So 2s in the tarot often have to do with equilibrium and two things coming together being balanced out. It's a number of balance. And you could effectively say that for 2s in playing cards as well. But you don't have all the symbolic imagery here. I know that I call this card the handshake, because that just makes it easier for me to remember the meanings of the card. But why is it called that? It's because, well, the 2, obviously, there's 2 of them. So 2 people, 2 objects, 2 things. But clubs have to do with work and labor, business. So it kind of is a very simple elaboration from there to go, okay, it's the handshake. It's the beginning, because it's also, 2 is a young number. It's, you know, second from the first. I'm not quite a fan of how I'm explaining all this, but I hope you guys like it. But yeah, I hope you can kind of see what I'm talking about here, where, like, I look at this card, I look at the 2 of clubs, and I go, okay, so it is close to the beginning. It's related to the beginnings of things, but it's also about the relation of 2 things to each other. And it has to do with work. So the handshake is, for me, the easiest way of remembering that. And that can mean a lot of different things, again, based on what's around this card. This can be you shaking hands with a business partner. This could be the start of a new business venture for you. This can also be your enemies shaking hands behind your back and plotting against you. If it appears in the right place, around the right cards. Maybe using the right cards here is a little bit misleading, but, you know, the right cards to signify that sort of situation. So that's kind of like a really simple way. That's at least the easiest way I could think of to show the differences between like what you're working with tarot and what you're working with playing cards. Again, they're both useful. I like them both. Doing my video the other day actually made me bust my tarot cards out again and decide to do a couple readings with them. And it's solid. Of course, you know, that's something that has more to do with the person doing the reading than the actual method of reading being used. The ability to divine accurately is a spiritual gift. It's something that people can learn, but I think you already have to have the gift to begin with to even pursue it. So if you're starting out and you're new to this, or even if you're just interested in, you know, what's cartomancy, what's tarot, what's divination, like, you know, just know that these are things that it takes years to learn, and it's okay to be a beginner. It's okay to be starting out. And it's okay also to try different styles of readings because you never know what's going to speak to you. One thing that speaks to me might not speak to you, and something that speaks to you might not speak to me. So it's really important just to know yourself and to just, if it ain't working, try something else. I'm gonna cut it off here because it's about 10 minutes longer than I wanted to go. But that's a quick little look at what the differences between tarot and cartomancy are. They're really, I also too, so is tarot cartomancy? Yeah, it's divination by card. And these are playing cards. The tarot images might be associated with mysticism and divination now, but they were originally a form of a card game. These are obviously used in card games. And I think there is some sort of intimate correlation and relationship between card games or games of chance and divination, because you're working with the raw forces of luck. You're working with numbers. And numbers are an ancient symbolic language. I don't mean that in a numerological sense in the sort of modern New Age numerology sort of way. But they are a really important part of the language that we use to communicate things symbolically. But before I go into a whole different tirade, I'm just going to stop here and say we will do videos about most of these other things I brought up and went on little tirades about. I hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe. If you want to just know when I am releasing more videos, I'm going to have more content out soon. I'm trying to do 1 to 2 videos a week about cartomancy, tarot, and next week I might do a video about geomancy. But I know for sure that my next video is going to be, do I need to get a reading? And it's going to be about why you get readings, what's the point of getting one, and what you should expect, specifically what you should expect from getting a reading from me. So until then,